Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of The Surfer's Journey. Today's episode is all about what a beginner level surfer has to do to progress to an intermediate level. To do this, you need to learn a few maneuvers. Obviously, a beginner level surfer has just started to maybe learn some maneuvers, but the difference between a beginner and an intermediate is that an intermediate is starting to refine those turns, make them a little bit more progressive and a little bit more critical. Well, today's video is going to explain how to do all of that and more.
To perform a turn on a surfboard, there are many things that happen. We're talking about upper body rotation, looking with your eyes, transitioning your weight from front to back and from heel to toe. If we can put these together in the right combination, at the right time, on the right section, then we'll be able to unlock a whole library of turns.
Now obviously there's no set way to surf, but there's a few key skills that every surfer, regardless of what kind of board they're surfing, needs to know. Let's have a closer look at what some of these maneuvers are.
All turns are essentially just a change of direction, however they're performed on different sections of a wave with different body movements and positioning. This will allow us to change our turns from a carve to a snap to a re-entry to a reverse, etc. To set up any maneuver, a surfer must be able to perform a bottom turn. So to perform a bottom turn, you simply go down to the bottom of the wave. You look to where you're going to perform your top turn. As you do this, your front arm is pointing to where you're going to go. You're looking, and as you drive off the bottom, you start compressed, and as you come out of that turn, your body extends, and that weight's going onto my toes. Then I enter compression to start performing my top turn, and I start to rotate my upper body and I start to look back to the foam, and now the weights transition onto my heels. I keep looking and I keep rotating, therefore my board will keep turning. And to finish the maneuver, I explosively push out my back leg and put all the weight onto my front leg, and I throw my arms because that helps create weightlessness in the surfboard and it allows me to finish that top turn with more explosiveness. And to finish, I simply compress low and reset. If we look at that from point of view, you can see that as I'm looking and pointing, my front arm is pointing to where I'm going to perform that top turn. Do you see the board follows? I then look back to where I want my board to go, and you'll see that the board follows once again. And you can see here the transition of weight onto my front foot as I extend my back leg. And then I compress low to finish. Let's have a look at an example of a bottom turn to top turn on the backhand. To set up the bottom turn, I go down to the bottom of the wave. Now bottom turns can be adjusted depending on the section and where you are, but let's just keep it simple for now. I can press low to start my bottom turn, and as I come out, I start to extend, and I'm looking and pointing to where I want to go. Once I get to the top of the wave, I look and I change my direction. My upper body rotates with my eyes, and that allows my weight to transition from my heels back onto my toes. And then I can press low to finish that maneuver. Let's have a look at point of view. I get to the bottom of the wave. This is a great example of seeing whereabouts I'm positioned on the wave. If you look at my shadow, you can see the upper body rotation, which is going to help me put my board up onto that section. I then look and point back to where I want my board to finish. And once again, you can change this depending on the section that you're actually on. Remember that where you look is where you go. As you progress with your bottom to top turn combinations, you can start to put it together on more critical sections and perform it with more speed and more power. The roundhouse cutback is an extension of what we just learned, of that simple top turn. To perform it, you simply do a bottom turn and spot the section. Now a roundhouse cutback is typically more of a horizontal move that's performed on a fat section of the wave. So you look and point, and then once you get to the top of the wave, you then look back towards the foam, and you keep looking and keep rotating for longer this time. I want to keep my board on rails so that I'm able to put my board onto the foam like this. Now with some practice and with some better sections, you'll eventually be able to form a more critical re-entry off that foam. But by performing roundhouse cutbacks, you'll utilize the most of a fat, slow wave. Another key benefit of performing a roundhouse cutback is that it allows us to go back to the power source, and this point of view will show what happens. So as I put my board up onto the foam, I then get an acceleration of speed from that foam, which sets me up nicely for the next section. A re-entry is when a surfer puts their surfboard up above the lip of a wave. Let's have a look at how to do this. You simply perform another bottom turn as you usually would, but we want more rotation now. Notice how I've rotated more. My front arm has thrown up high, and where I'm pointing is where my board will eventually end up. Once my board's up, I quickly rotate back down and I look down. This has to be performed with speed and aggression because it needs to be fast. Let's have a look at an example of a re-entry on my forehand. Now once again, I'm setting up by doing a bottom turn, and I'm looking and pointing and holding that weight onto my toes because I want to keep driving up. Once I put my board up, I look and I rotate the opposite direction. In this case, I've decided to push out my back leg, which has allowed me to release the fins. This isn't something to focus on right now, but as long as you remember that once your board's up above the lip, you need to quickly and aggressively look and rotate down to the bottom of the wave. Once we can perform re-entries, we can then add them in to the roundhouse cutback like I mentioned before. By simply holding your rail longer and performing a re-entry high off the foam, you're going to maximize more speed as you come out of that maneuver. And it's going to set you up for the next section that's coming. So what is flow and why is it something to aim for? Well, flow is aiming to perform maneuvers back to back with as little downtime as possible. Now sometimes a wave won't actually allow you to go top to bottom, but if we can do our best to keep the board on rail, and that's where we can utilize roundhouse cutbacks. When it is fat, by cutting back to the foam, we set ourselves up for our next section, and we buy ourselves a little bit of time for that wave to actually grow and develop. With time, practice, and lots of repetition of practicing your bottom turns, your top turns, your cutbacks, and your re-entries, you'll get confident to then put these into different combinations on a wave. And as your confidence builds, you'll start performing these maneuvers in more critical sections. And ultimately, if you can do that successfully, it's going to look better and feel better.
Progressing from a beginner level surfer to an intermediate level surfer can take some time, and we need as many hours in the water as we can to practice. But obviously we need certain sections to practice certain maneuvers, and sometimes that's out of our control. But by knowing exactly what we need to do when we're presented with a certain section, we're going to be prepared for when that time comes.
Another skill that intermediate surfers need to learn is how to surf a wave top to bottom. Now in this example we can see that this wave would allow for this opportunity because it's steep and bowly. So I want to stay in the pocket by going top to bottom, staying close to the power source. By doing this, my turns are more critical, they feel better, and they look better. Let's have a look at another example. Here you can see I take off and I go down to the bottom of the wave to perform my bottom turn. I then drive up to the lip, and I want to perform my maneuvers high on the wave, as close to the top of the wave as possible. By doing this, I'll maximize my spray spray and speed, and the turn will look better. By keeping that board on rail for longer, by looking back to the power source, which then puts me back into the pocket. And this allows me to set up for my next maneuver. For this section, you can see that the wave was throwing out, it's more vertical, so it allows me to put my board up to perform a re-entry with a little bit of a float. If you're ever presented with a section, it's better to hit that section than go around that section if you can. Now as I came out of that, you can see the wave had really fattened out, and this is where the roundhouse cutback plays a crucial role. I'm able to cut back to the foam, perform that re-entry or foam climb on that foamy section, which is then going to give me more speed to come out and perform another maneuver. Coming out of that roundhouse, you can see the wave still didn't have much to offer, so I did another roundhouse cutback. This has given the wave time to form another section, and you can see the section that's coming now was steeper, and this section was going to allow me to perform a carve, and it was steep enough to let me throw the tail at the end. Remember that weight transition onto our front leg will help loosen the tail. Intermediate surfers maximize any turning opportunity, and even on a small foamy section like this, you're able to still do a little foam climb and release the tail. By practicing that weight transition from your heels to your back leg as you explode and then onto the front leg, you're going to learn to eventually slide the tail. But that's something to work on down the track.
Guys, thanks for watching the video today. I hope that if you're at a beginner level and you're striving to get to that intermediate level, that this video has helped you understand how to perform those maneuvers and some points to focus on. Remember to like the video and comment below to let me know what other videos you'd like to see. Thanks guys.